Hello and welcome to another 5 minute first impressions. I'm Anthony Malik and this is reviewyour.website. Reviewing, well, I'm not too sure, but we'll find out in about 3 or 4 seconds. Okay, so we're looking at PSD to RWD, and I'm guessing we're talking a Photoshop file and perhaps a responsive web design, but convert your I should have read the tagline. Convert your Photoshop design into code for a responsive web page. Okay, so the first thing that jumps to mind is that this image is off center, but I'll get there in a second. The second thing that jumps to mind is that PSD to RWD isn't a very obvious thing. Like, I wouldn't really be familiar with the phrase RWD. It wouldn't jump straight into mind. But I suppose you have the domain name, and that's what you're going to build your brand on. So let's just stick to the design, I suppose. I'm not a branding expert. Okay, so we have PSD to RWD in 1 week, right? So even though your logo and your domain are PSD to RWD, I'd make it more obvious straight away. Assume that the person's only ever going to read the top line. You know, you've got about 3 seconds before people typically lose their concentration on your website. So I'd actually change it, perhaps, to Photoshop to web design in 1 week, or Photoshop to code, or something like that. Something that describes it a little bit more straightforward, or in a more straightforward manner, I suppose. So let's go straight on to the design. All right, so as I said, this image is off to the left here. Perhaps when I scroll down it will fit into something better, but right now it's just it's odd. It doesn't follow any alignment whatsoever. The next thing I notice are these buttons here, and they're different sizes, which is again quite odd. I understand that you have an arrow that does something, and that's going to the right, which just doesn't work. So I like the colors that you're using. I like the blues and the whites, and the contrast in the design going on with the blue outline versus the blue solid background. They actually work quite well, I think. So what I do is I'd just make sure that they are the exact right height. After that, I would review yourself the spacing between them. You might have to make the two buttons equally sized in width to make it work with your center aligned layout. And the reason I say that is because this spacing being off to the left is going to throw your whole design kind of asymmetrically, and it's going to throw it off. I think people are going to notice that space between buttons as well. It's just something that jumps out, especially because they're very solid, strong elements of your design here, of the front page of the design. The next thing that I notice is your background image is quite grainy. Now that could be a result of some optimization of a JPEG, but whatever it is, it's not working very well. I think you could choose a better image. There's a lot of, I'd like to say, negative space, but it's actually not. There are details here going on, this corner, this edge of the table, the sill of the window here, and it's just, it is a nice. Well, I wouldn't call it a nice picture. Everything between, let's say, where my mouse is here, or perhaps here, and below this tagline, and then over to the right here, that kind of makes a nice image. But there's something, it needs to be cropped or something, and I don't think the quality of the image is high enough for it to be cropped. So I'd have a look on Pexels or one of the other free image or free stock image websites out there. There's a huge array of images in this style of people organizing their stuff on their desks. So have a look there. You might find something that's a little bit better. And And I would definitely try and get a higher quality image. And if you're going for the white space in the background, make sure that it is white space and that it's not actually drawing attention away. One thing that you could do if you really did want to stick with this image, or if you happen to change to another image and you want to make it sit back further, is you could have it slightly blurred, but you're going to lose the detail in the center here as well. So that's really going to be up to you. Your logo is quite nice. There's something funny about this distance. I would give it a little bit more distance because the pricing button over here has a larger distance than this one. I would try, the most important thing for this is that the first thing that jumps to the eye is the top alignment, because you've got the strong the strong line of the top of the browser here, or the bottom of the URL bar. Everything that's going to want to hang from that at a similar spacing, I suppose. So while it does look like you have the left alignment and the right alignment equal, or at least for now it does, make sure that top alignment is the same. I don't think they're bottom aligned either, which is a bit odd. So we'll I'd have a review of that. I do like your pricing button up here, but it seemed like the design of it seems quite nice. I like the fact that it's it's subtle, it's in the background and stuff, but it seems a little bit out of place. There's no context up there. There's nothing to. It's just drawing my attention over there for no real reason. I assume that if I follow it down, the pricing is going to be down here, but we'll just my opinion anyway. So we'll move on. PSD to RWD in 1 week. Yes. Something about this isn't. Yeah. I mean, I've mentioned that it should be a little bit more straightforward. Something odd about the small. Not. I'm losing my English. Sorry about this. Something about this isn't working. It's like it's almost a title, but it's not. It's almost a headline, but it's not. Something to do with capital letters versus uncapitalized letters, or lowercase letters, I should probably say. It's just something funny going on here. Perhaps if we changed it to Photoshop to web design in 1 week might work better. Convert your Photoshop design into code for a responsive website, and this is going to bring me somewhere else, I assume. So let's click some buttons here and see where they bring us. Right, so before doing that, okay, so yeah, I like that overlapping there, but I'd make sure this is centered. So I'm going to click how it works. Okay, and it brings it down. And I'm going to make sure this one does something. Oh, it doesn't pop up. Are you ready to convert a PSD? There are 3 prerequisites. The people, the PSD, the prerequisite. Okay. So yeah, you have your buttons the same size here, and they actually work really well. What is different is that you have your white button on the right here and your blue button on the left, whereas behind this, it's the other way around. And that jumps out to me for some reason. Also, the 2 lines within the button is a bit odd. I'd even try and make this not inside a button, just have it a link on its own without the outline. Beside this might work, but it's again something you're going to have to review, but we'll leave that. So yeah, the arrow here doesn't do much to it. I know the down arrow does, it's indicating that it's going to scroll us down, and the right arrow doesn't indicate anything. It's telling me it's going to go somewhere, but there's no real point in having it there. And I'm a big fan of removing extra elements. So yeah, that doesn't really tell me much. Let's move on. Like I said, I like the fact that you're breaking this boundary here. I would break it. Actually, I think, yeah, you're breaking it at the right point for this image. As I mentioned in previous images, the eye, the human eye, kind of looks for coincidental alignments, and you're breaking the alignment with this and this area here and this line here quite well. So I think that works actually very well. Okay, so the first thing that's jumping out to me here is your headers should follow a strong pattern, in that the most important thing in the page should be the biggest, and the least important should be the smallest, or something along those lines. So this here's what we do doesn't, it's the first piece of text that we see, so technically it should be a header, or and it's a lot smaller and it's italicized. And so what we have already is we have 1, 2, 3 different sizes of text, and we have italicized, it looks almost bold, but I think it's actually just that the text size is larger. And then we have this standard paragraph here. So, and then we have the indented here. So we've 4 kind of text styles in a very small space. So what I do is I get rid of that completely. It's not telling us anything extra. It's not leading us into any more information, and it's not bringing us any closer to purchasing your product. I just leave it with the we convert designs into mobile responsive web pages. In fact, do you know, that could almost be up here, and then you wouldn't have an issue with this. But let's move on. We write the code, test it on all major devices, and have it ready for launch next week. Okay, I like that your line length is short. It's quite readable. It's good. Your font sizes are nice and big. Your font is clear to read. I don't like these bullet points. Something's cutting off the top of the tick mark, and it's not working. Also the image is kind of blurry. And yeah, I don't like that at all. What I would do. Okay, so we have responsive layout, responsive images, responsive menu, device and browser tested, ready to go. Okay, so we're moving down here. Yeah, I'd get rid of that completely. It's not really adding much. Nothing that you're saying it down here with in a kind of different, larger layout. So okay. This image here looks like a stock image, and it's also cropped at the top oddly, and that draws my attention. A bit weird that all of these edges are curved except for this one, so it just looks a little bit strange. Also, I'm not too sure what the blue boxes are here. It's kind of killing it, and it's kind of blurred as well, so that image just is taking away a lot from the professionalism of the design. Again, actually these icons here as well are taking away because they're ever so slightly blurry. There's some anti-aliasing going on here on the corners that just isn't working. Especially this one, which is a bunch of rectangles. I don't actually like this image itself. It's very black and it's not really describing what we want to show. I would definitely look at finding simpler icons or better icons that better describe what you're trying to say. So at this point, the next thing that's coming to mind is your layout isn't fluid at this point. So once again, if you see where I'm aligning the top of this icon with the top of the browser, we see these 2 icons aren't vertically aligned. And again, you're going to find the bottom of them aren't vertically aligned. So that's really throwing me off. The next thing, you should have your titles should be vertically aligned. Again, and that will help. The next thing, so these lines are actually too short, or maybe not that they're too short, but there's too much text in this box here. It's just too long. You should be well able to get this down to maybe 3-4 lines at max. Maybe even 5 lines at max. Something about this isn't working. These 2 images, are they vertically aligned? They're actually closer vertically aligned than the top 2, which is kind of funny. And straight away, actually, if you can see that these 2 actually sit better because they are vertically aligned. They work a lot better. The next thing I'd say is your gutters, by which I mean the space between this box and this box, or this space here, is wider than your margins, which is out here, and that's a bit strange. That seems very odd to me. It's convention to have your margins wider than your gutters. It makes this feel like the website is almost being squeezed into the size of the page, which shouldn't be, because this is well, it's not a small screen anyway. So you should be able to, I would think, make this a lot smaller, and it might fix the alignment a little bit better. The next thing I do is, so you've got 4 points here, which means it's obviously not divisible by 3, but the human eye kind of likes 3s. So if you could do things in sets of 3s, you see it very often. You have one icon, another icon in the middle, and a third on the right. So I'd try and knock this down to, maybe even get rid of one of them. If it's not that important. Let's move on. from here. Okay, so this grey. Okay, so you've warmed it up, I see, by going kind of into the brownie spectrum here. Something, is it something odd about it? It's almost, I don't know what it is. It's just a huge block of black. And this text, there's nothing to, it's just a block of text, and I don't really want to read it, to be honest. That's what's just coming into my head. Also, the margin here is very big, very big. It makes me feel like once I get here, there's nothing more to the page. It's not enticing me to scroll any further. So I would reduce the size of this margin here. We'll move down further. Okay. So this image here looks rather amateur. So I would replace that with something. How it works. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this header either. This header font in this position just isn't working in the center. It could be the alignment of this image though as well. It's throwing it off. So we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's a lot of text here. And we've used the same image twice. There's a huge amount of text here describing what is essentially a very simple idea. I reckon you could distill the text a huge amount for this whole area. I mean, essentially, your homepage doesn't need to be any more than a couple paragraphs of text just to get the initial idea across. And if people are interested, then they'll fall into your sales funnel, and then you can start selling to them and giving them more information. Excuse me. Giving them more information. So I would really try and distill this and just have a call to action straight away. Convert my PSD. I'd put it, if you could describe it in this small section here, and then just have convert my PSD, somewhere along here, and then the rest of this information, I just think it's going on far too long. Nobody's going to read this realistically. Okay, the next thing, this color is horrid. I don't like it at all. It's almost like a bile color, which I would definitely try and avoid. This purple doesn't work either. The circles are too big. The spacing inside is too large. There's not enough spacing in between. So that's going to need a lot of work. Really, these buttons down here need a lot of work as well. They just seem to be haphazardly thrown there. There's no real layout to it. This grey colour, is this colour the same as this? No, it's darker than this. So straight away, if we're looking at your design, we have 4 colours. I see let's say background colours. We've got this pure white. We have a warm grey. We have this yellowy greeny thing, and then we have this cold grey, or this kind of light grey. So that's kind of throwing off your design. Let's go further. Some blurring here needs to be fixed. A lot of work needs to be done here with the spacing. It just seems to be thrown there. This image serves no purpose whatsoever, and it's not very, this text is just thrown there. That link is just thrown there, and your footer needs work. So I'm going to assume that from this point down, in fact, no, I'm going to assume that from somewhere about this point down, you haven't got as far as properly laying it out. And I think I think you could save yourself a lot of time by splitting these off into separate pages, reducing the amount of text on your homepage, making the user, as soon as they're interested, follow your sales funnel, follow a call to action, and then if they really, if they want that information, they'll search it out, they'll find it in the necessary sections of your page. So I hope this review was helpful. I'll see you next time.